My name is Mona, and I am a very grateful addict. I normally have trouble getting through to 8:30 if I'm the speaker. So if I'm a little nervous, please excuse me. At least I haven't fallen out yet. My clean date is the 12th of August, 1968. And I would like to tell you that it may not impress you, but it impresses the shit out of me. I was what was known in my region as a professional slipper. And I ran in and out for 12 and a half years. And I got clean in Los Angeles, the home of Narcotics Anonymous. And a lot of people said that broad will never make it. And I'd love to go to L.A. if they're still alive and thumb my nose. I have to tell you something that's very near and dear to my heart. And if I upset you, oh well. You know, I know how to count. I have 2 doctorate degrees, and I know how to count. And I have read the steps, and I have read the traditions, and they are how I choose to live my life, and I don't need any motherfucker talking when they're being read. You know, those little girls that came up here that use today, or with one day, they need to hear it, and so do I. These are the things that made our recovery possible. So I don't know about people from Ohio, but in California, we know how to count. And with that, I'll rest my case. Before I forget, because I'm old and I forget everything, I want to thank the committee for asking me. I will tell you how Narcotics Anonymous works. I got this call from Ohio. I ain't never been to Ohio. I don't know nothing about Ohio. And I got off the phone and I thought, how'd they ask me? How'd they get my tape? How come they didn't ask me if they could listen to it? And I sponsor a girl who is engaged to a man who tapes, and they push my tapes. So that's how you got me, so if you don't like it, complain to them. I will try to tell you a little bit about what it used to be like, what happened, and what it's like today. I must tell you that I do not speak for Narcotics Anonymous, for which they are eternally grateful. I do not speak for my region or my area. They also are eternally grateful. I was born and raised in California in a town called El Centro, for any of you who have the misfortune of knowing where that is. El Centro is in the Mojave Desert. On a cool day in the summer in the shade, it's 130. There are no cool days, and there's no fucking shade. It's where they send Catholics that do not make purgatory. I am half Irish and half Apache Indian, and I was raised a Roman Catholic. So you know I was in dire need of something. I am compulsive in all areas of my life. I am 8 times married and 1 near miss. And I have not found it necessary to do that except once in recovery. And I watched him die of my disease. I don't ever say from a podium, I will never marry again, because the last time I said that, I met him. So I try not to say that, but I say God loves me and I ain't married. I ain't shopping and I ain't looking. I have set marriage back 3 centuries. I also have to tell you, which may upset some of you, that I was introduced to recovery in the other fellowship, and I have nothing but praise for those people. I have no horror stories about how they treated me. They loved me, and they told me I was welcome. And I would like to tell you, I couldn't wait 12 fucking years for a book. I'd have died. And if I could have used 1 more hour, I would have had a different clean date. But I'm eternally grateful to those people and the love they showed me. And I think it's a shame that we have to spend, when we have a dynamite fellowship, talking about something that gave us our first glimpse of recovery. I was raised on a cattle ranch. I also have some pet peeves. My worst one is I came from a dysfunctional family. You know, I was the most dysfunctional thing my family had seen in 5 generations. And I was raised in a loving family who did everything within their power to help me. And there are thousands of people in my life who tried to love me. And the only person that turned them away was me. I suffer from a disease that is self-inflicted. I did not become an addict praying in church. I put a lot of hard fucking work in getting here. You know, and I have a friend who works for me. I'm also very privileged that my vocation is recovery. And I think it's a shame that we in Narcotics Anonymous use treatment facility lingo in our meetings, because we do it best. The therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. And I sit in meetings and a 12-step call will come in and people are too busy to go. Or I can't go because it's past 10 o'clock at night. I strongly suggest you better remember where you came from. Yeah. I came the first time at 20 years old in Los Angeles, said 3 days. I said if I was as old as these fucking old broads, I'd quit too. By the grace of a loving God, I lived to be that old. You know, I go to meetings, they say, you want what we got? And I'd look around and I'd say, no. I mean, these were old men. And they were poor old men. I went to my first meeting of Narcotics Anonymous in a place in San Fernando Valley called Shire's Dryer. It was a spin drive for old drunks. Spin dry is they spin you through there in 29 days, take your money and send you on the road to spread joy amongst the needy. And I walked into a meeting and these old men told me I was not welcome. This was a program for men. And I said, and you assholes big enough to throw me out have not found it necessary to use from that day to this. And the lie is dead. Women do recover. If you take the 6th longest time in the world, 4 of us are women, darling. 4 of us are women. My sponsor has the longest time in the world, 37 years. And she got it the same place I got it. Now, I stayed a very short time the first time, and there's a lot of stuff I hadn't done. I graduated from high school when I was 1 month shy of 16 years old. I had my first degree when I was 18. I had my first doctorate degree when I was 21. And when I was 22, I was doing 10 to life. And that was the upside of my addiction. You know, living the dream is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Because when I was a very small child on this cattle ranch in California, I'm the only girl and 35 grandchildren and the baby. And I was told that I was special. And what I heard was I was different. I came out of the chute feeling different. I always say I'm a very grateful addict because without the gift from my God of addiction, I would still be on the outside looking in, wondering why I didn't fit. And because of the gift from a loving God of addiction, I had to make peace with the one broad I never wanted to know, and that was me. You know, I would have made peace with anybody, but I didn't want to know me. And I left after 3 days, and I went out to see the world and make my mark. And I went those places that I said I would never go, and I did all that stuff that I said I would never do. I was in a penitentiary for 7 years. I went up for parole at 4.5 years and said to me, would you do what you did? Don't come afterwards and ask me what I did, because none of your business. And I said in a flat fucking minute, and I went back for 3 more. And when they went before again, they said, would you do what you did? I said, no, I have found the Lord. And I'm going out to be a useful member of society. Now, high on my list was getting laid. Been a long, dry spell. And it took me 3 months because I fixed in the car leaving, because I was hip, slick, and cool. For those of you who don't know, it's a California expression meaning stupid. And I was tough, don't you know? In that penitentiary, I honed the science that allowed me to survive to get to you people, and that was called hate. In the first year I was there, I spent 7 months in solitary confinement because I was tough. And a black lady taught me how to do time, or I would have died there. Because they can do things to you there that are unspeakable and never leave a mark on you. And she taught me that if I would come out, I would do time here. And allowed me to live to get to you people. And that hatred that I had kept me clean the first 4.5 years I was back. When I was out of the penitentiary, I decided I need to get anywhere out of California because I'd been their guest for quite some time. So I flipped a coin and I went to Hawaii. Did some of my finest showing off in Hawaii. Now, I'm old and I may not look like much to you today, but I looked wonderful when I was that age. I looked about 732. And at the drop of a hat, I took your old man and dropped my clothes. Didn't matter in which order. And be eternally grateful I don't do that today because I could clear this room in a heartbeat. And my attorney said, Mona, you're going back. Now, if you've ever been in the penitentiary, they don't need to tell you you're going back to where. That phrase, you're going back, says it within itself. And my mother said, Mona, all the right people are going to this fellowship. It's the in thing to do. And whatever husband I had, God knows, I don't remember, said, please, go anywhere. I love civilized divorce. Such a sham. You know, you leave me, I'm going to look for you till you fucking die. And they all left me in a hurry. Said, I love you, baby, but I can't anymore. And I'd say, is there money in the bank? They'd say, no. I'd say, goodbye. So I went into recovery one more time. And in those days, we knew nothing about cross-addiction. So I quit shooting dope, and I drank booze, and I worked the 13 step to the very best of my ability. I love women who say men are the only people that stand by the door panting. Lie. I've done it, and I suffered. Because if they stay, they drop you anyway. I know. So if you haven't experienced it, please do. You can have mine. It's like the newcomer that says, when am I going to get what I deserve? I say, baby, you can have mine. I hit my knees every night and I say, thank you, God, that I have not gotten today what I deserve. And I smoke and enjoy it. I've given up everything else. Give me a break, huh? If I give up anything else, they're going to throw dirt in my face. I would like to tell you that I came back because I wanted to be a good mother, that I wanted to be a friend to whoever I was hooked up with at that time, or that I wanted to be a good daughter. But the God's truth is, I came back because it just flat fucking didn't work anymore. I have a friend who I love like a son, who has muscular dystrophy as a direct result of shooting heroin. I can't say it like you people in the Midwest and the East say heroin, whatever you call it. Heron. That's a bird. But my friend Eric says, any more and I would have died, and any less and I would have died. And I crawled in these rooms, and I would have done anything. I'm eternally grateful that I was ready. I love shooting dope. I ain't never had a man in my life that I had the love affair that I had with shooting dope. God has not made that piece of ass yet. And when I got here, I didn't say, oh, I'm home and I belong. I don't know what your home looked like, but mine didn't look like this. And did I want what you had? No. And did I do it willingly? No. But if you stay here long enough, God will send you somebody just like you. My God has a hell of a sense of humor, and I sponsor some broads that are just like me, and it's real taxing. I am proud to be called a book person. I am proud to know what my recovery book tells me. I love people that say there are no musts in Narcotics Anonymous. Strongly suggest you're going to die using. You know, I've sponsored a lot of women over the years. Women sponsor women. Don't come up and tell me there are no women that can sponsor me. Bullshit. You know what? God has not made the man I can't trick. And God has not made the man that can't trick me. You know, and this is not about belly rubbing. This is about life or death. 3 out of us out of 100 get to stay here, and you ain't getting my seat. So, you know, it's not about fucking and sucking and carrying on and the dog and pony show what the fuck you wear. I mean, I look good, darling, but you should see me on a daily basis. I don't look like this every day. No, trust me. I want to run a working ranch, and I look most days like I haunt houses. But I hear a lot of talk in these rooms about, I can't find somebody who used like me. I can't find somebody who lives the same lifestyle as I do. I can't find somebody who understands me. I am 56 years old, and I have been around these programs for 36 years, and I have yet to read that that is a prerequisite for sponsorship. There is one prerequisite. No, I lied. There's 3 for me. My sponsor has a sponsor in Narcotics Anonymous. My sponsor is involved in service. And my sponsor hasn't hit that 10-year thing where they get too well to be here. And my sponsor loves me enough to tell me the truth about me. And I don't want to hear that. I want to hear, Mona, we're going to hold you up as a shining example of recovery. Never happened. I am a liar, a cheat, and a thief. And the root of my disease is the same as it was when I picked up the first time at 9 years old. I am selfish, and I am self-centered, and I am self-seeking. And that will kill me if I put my life in the hands of a woman that tells me that's okay. I've seen too many people die that worked it better than I did. The only requirement isn't even an honest desire, because none of you got here for the right reason. I love people say, I paid for my seat. You stole for your fucking seat. Or they get up and say, well, whoever got up first has the most clean time. You know they ain't got none. No. I don't care if you got up at 4. I got more clean time. You know? And it's important that you're proud of your clean time, because if you ain't, you'll throw it away. But I have earned my seat since I got here. And none of it. I have a T-shirt that one of my babies gave me, and it says, and this is me, everything I let go of in recovery has claw marks on it. And I hear a lot of complaints. I'm not happy. You're not supposed to be happy if you're new. You know, whoever told you that is brain dead. I got here and I gave up what allowed me to live for 32 years and not feel nothing. And I got here and they say, you having a good time? I'd say, fuck no. You love us? No. You got a God in your life? Fuck no. And I don't want him. And I got this broad. They drew straws and she lost. And she was everything I hated in a woman. I mean, she had been to bed with one man. And I used to say to her, darling, so many men in such a little bit of time. And she walked like she talked, and she loved me unashamedly. She did not love me for what I was going to be standing here tonight with 24 years, 5 months, 22 days, at 1 o'clock today. But she loved me, the sick pup I was when I got here. I also hear people in my region, I'm sure you don't do it here, this is Ohio. I had to stop and think where I was. And somebody loaded will come in the meeting, they'll say, get him out of here or her out of here. And I say, where the fuck they belong if they don't belong here? You forget where you came from, asshole? Nothing says you gotta get here and quit using. We just say for this shit to work, it helps. I don't know why. Seems I should have been able to get here. This is Narcotics Anonymous. You should have been able to teach me how to use like a lady. I think you've been remiss. And I love people who sit in meetings and tell me who should be here. Now, I will tell most of you assholes, this is Narcotics Anonymous, and I don't know about in Ohio, but in San Diego, 9/10 of the people in the meeting couldn't be there if we were selected because they never tried narcotics in their fucking life. If you want to be here, you belong. That's all. Better one person get here who doesn't belong than us telling you what you can say, how you can say it, and who you say it to, and that suffering addict dies out there because they're a dope fiend and don't tell them what they can say. You know, I'm here because this is my home. But when I was new, I was here because I was dying. And I'd run out of people, places, and things to use. And if I'd have found one more fool out there that would have supported my habit, I'd have a different clean date. So if you guard what we have here, it can only be destroyed with apathy. This is not a disease of color. It is not a disease of sexual preference. It is a disease of addiction. And who in their right mind would come here if they don't need to? I mean, you know anybody who's normal that says, God damn, it's Saturday night, I think I'll go to an NA meeting. I ain't met that fool yet. We come in here just crawling in. And we say, I'll do anything. In about 31 days, that disappears. We sit in meetings and tell people at the time, hey, you ain't doing it right here. I tell mine, sit down, shut up, and listen. My region, they talk a lot about 90 meetings in 90 days. You only shoot dope 90 times in 90 days? I was told I would go to 365 meetings in 365 days, and if I missed a day, I'd start over. I was not allowed to speak for the first year because my sponsor said, we don't need you sharing your disease. We know how to shoot dope here. The first year I was clean, I went to 720 meetings. And I needed every one. See, I don't know which meeting I can't go to because I don't know which one I'm going to miss, what's going to save my life. Because I will tell you, as those people with time in this room can attest to, time, one more time, buys you separation. Because people think you're water walkers. You know, water walking gets your clothes real fucking wet. You know, we are not gurus here. I don't have a better pipeline to God because I've been here. I'm just more willing to ask Him quicker because I've been here longer and I know it works. This broad never swore a day till she got me. And And I know I love newcomers when they hug. There's a rule with newcomers, only shoulders can touch. God forbid anything else touches. But when you're out there shooting dope, you rub it over anybody, anything, man, woman, child, or dog. You know, and you get here, oh, only shoulders can touch, please. It used to make me hug all these people. And I said, Lord, help me. She'd make me talk to broads that I hated. She drugged me to service meetings for 2 years and never allowed me to open my mouth. And I said, don't you understand who I am? And bad news, yes, she did. Newcomers think we forgot. I have women come to me and say, well, you don't understand. You've been here too long. Oh, you're too old to understand about relationship problems. I tell them, baby, I've forgotten more men I've fucked than you've had. You know, they're 25. They don't even know how to do it yet. I made a lot of money doing that. I got a PhD in that. And if I could still make that kind of money, I would not be standing here tonight. But this woman had me do stuff, probably the toughest thing I'm asked because I was a professional relapser. And I run a facility for professional relapsers. I mean, I don't get any of those first time around. They're not about to stay around me. And I don't know why the last time was the last time, and I know it was the last time. I don't believe I'm going to use again because God loves me. But the only thing I can tell you is I am not clean because I chose to be clean, because I chose to be clean 15 years before I put it down. Every day when I was on the way to doing it, I'd say, today it's going to be different. I ain't going to do it today. And God knows if I could have quit, I would have. Because it was a long, long time since I'd gotten high. It was just about surviving. It was about doing all those things that I didn't want to do one more day. You see, we suffer from a disease that says, if I do not have the chemical, I will cause the organism to die. And so we go again and again and again when we are beat bloody. And it never enters our mind not to get into the fight. Because the brain says, I must have it for the body or I will stop and I will cease to exist. Now, if you think the wrong people get in these rooms, who else but a dope fiend would understand that? Not your mother, not your minister, not your old man. Just somebody who's been there time and time and time again. You know, it's a disease that kills, and no one understands that if we could have done better, God knows we would have. Every day I promised my kids, today it's going to be different. And every time I saw that look of terror in my mother's eye, I'd say, Ma, it's different now. And every time she believed me. And I wanted with everything in me to make that the truth. And until I was done, I wasn't done. I didn't want to go the places I went from 20 to 32. God knows I didn't. I was raised in a loving, loving family that believed in a loving and caring God and told me I was a gift from God. And I proceeded to make that a lie. And I came to you people, and you allowed me to be a child of God. You allowed me to come in with all my sickness and with all my hatred and said, welcome home. I am more related to you people, and I know none of you, than I am to my blood, because we suffer from the disease of addiction. So when that new person comes and they can't stay, and they come loaded to the meeting, I'd strongly suggest you tell them you love them. The only person who doesn't love them is them. I am the only fish I have to catch. It's not about people looking up to me, or it's not about my mother thinking I'm a wonderful human being, or my kids loving me. The name of the game here is me loving me. I am the only person in my life that ever set me up. You know, and we can all tell horror stories about what happened to us, but you know what? I am a firm believer that there are no victims. I volunteered for 23 and a half years on a daily basis. Now, this squirrel broad that sponsored me, she used to pat me a lot and put her hands on me. And where I came from, you touched me, it meant money was going to change hands. And I'd say, get your hands off me. And she'd say, that's all right, darling, I love you. And I'd think, I'm going to kill her. I used to go home at night and think of horrible things I was going to do to her. And yet I followed direction. If you believe you're not clean because God loves you, why else did you stay when every other time you ran? She told me to do things I'd have shot my mother for telling me to do. She told me I would go home and I would read this piece of literature and I would come back and I would give her one spiritual principle for the first step. And I thought, ha, I got this old bitch. Because due to my addiction, I had lost the ability to read and write. I said, oh, I'd love to do what you asked. But I can't read or write. She said, that's all right, darling. We got it on tape. Now, this lady quit school in the 10th grade. And I was an intellectual giant. So I figured, well, I'll go home, read this shit. I'll come back. I'll give her these words, and she'll leave me the fuck alone. Well, it took me 2 weeks to get the first spiritual principle that I try to live my life on. And I believe the first principle of recovery in the first step is surrender. It's not about willingness. I was willing to quit a long time, but I never gave up the fight. And so I got here and I learned about surrender. That I have lost the war. I have lost the battle. And God is management and I am labor. And I ain't never going to get to be management. Which I think's kind of unfair. I mean, I've been here a long time. Can't I be in charge? Have you ever noticed if your life is going really good and everything you touch is just working perfect, people will say to you in these rooms, God's alive in your life and it's going well. But if you fuck up, they say, you're doing it yourself. I don't like that. I want someday when I'm fucking up my life, you just say, see what God's doing? Hasn't ever worked that way for anybody I know. I don't know why. She taught me about the second step, and I love to hear people talk about the second step has to do with insanity. Normal people do insane shit when they do what we do. The spiritual principle, I believe, for the second step is faith. I will come to understand that something that I can't touch, taste, see, feel, smell, or hear will do for me what I'm too fucking lazy to do for myself. And that's an act of faith. And I believe the spiritual principle for the third step is trust. Because if I'm going to turn my life and my will over to this intangible thing, I better trust it. And I had a real lot of trouble with that. And she'd tell me all this good shit, and I'd say, nah, I ain't going for that. And she'd say, finally, she said to me, Mona, if you were going to give me all your money, what did you better have in me? I said, I better trust you. She said, if you're going to turn your life and your will over the care of God, as you will never understand him, you better trust the son of a bitch. And I said, well, I'm a little iffy in that. I don't have a lot of trouble with faith because I've been here long enough to see God perform miracles. But I have a lot of trouble with trust. I always know when I say, all right, God, it's yours. He knows and I know I'm lying. And I figure if he thinks like me, he's going to get me. But you know what? There has only been one thing in my recovery that I have surrendered to my God, truly surrendered when I am down on my knees just begging that he has ever seen fit to take from me. One thing. She took me through the steps in those days, in the first 30 days of my recovery. And she drugged me to places, oh God. We used to go to East L.A. If any of you have been in East L.A., the prerequisite for a meeting place is it must have a boxing ring in the middle. That is a prerequisite. Some of the finest recovery I've ever been fortunate enough to be around has come out of that area. And I said, but you don't understand. Don't you know who I am? I'm driving a Mercedes. I don't go to East L.A. She says, then get your ass out of here and make room for somebody who wants to. I said, well, maybe I'll go to East L.A. And then she sprung the killer on me. She said, you will hit your knees at night, and you will hit your knees in the morning, and you will pray. And I said, not me. She said, well, we'll miss you around here. I said, well, maybe I'll pray. She said, now God is not brain damaged. He has an excellent memory, so it's not about begging, borrowing, cajoling, and saying to God, if you'll get this bitch off my, I'll do anything. She says, what you do when your eyes come to in the morning is you hit your knees and you say, please. And when you go to bed at night, you say thank you, and that's all you can say for 1 year. I said, but I need a few things. She said, I don't care. You say please, and you say thank you. And I don't know about the rest of you, but, you know, I am arrogant to the core. I am still, anyone who knows me will say, she is an arrogant bitch. But it's real hard for me to be arrogant when I'm on my knees. So one more time, you people did for me what I could not do for myself. You taught me a way to meet my God and to know that he is God and all things are possible through him. Without God in my life, I could not stand here tonight. I mean, I'm in Ohio. I don't even know where this is. Except I know it took me 7 hours and I had to get up at 3:30 in the morning to get to the plane. And I thought, I bet I'm going to get there and they're going to tell me I can't smoke. I don't know how many of you have a suite, but I have a room that all of my ex-husbands and I could get in the bathtub and we wouldn't even have to talk. I mean, this bathtub is big. I laid in that bathtub today and I thought, isn't this a shame? Here I am all alone. I got all these mirrors and all this weird kind of stuff around me, and I'm thinking, I could be having a good time here. Here I am alone. It's a very nice room. It's a kind of room that you go with somebody else's husband. Now, I wouldn't know about that personally. I just read it somewhere in the book. This lady that I hated, and I did. You know, I don't think, when I sponsor women, I tell them, I don't give a shit if you like me. I like me, and I love you. And I hated this broad. Her house was immaculate. Her daughter was perfect. Her old man thought she was the greatest thing since 7-Up. And I was listening to this woman. You know, and today, the things I value about me, she taught me, and I'd like to share some of that with you. The first thing she taught me was it takes courage for a dope fiend to get clean. And if you think you're a dope fiend and you're in this room because you're weak, I would strongly suggest to you that weak dope fiends die using. Strong ones come here and make peace. And smoke. Oh, and I gotta give it up. God knows I gotta quit smoking. Oh. No, I don't want to quit smoking. I never went to jail behind smoking cigarettes with labels. I never wanted to kill my mother to buy a pack of cigarettes. I never fucked you for cash to buy cigarettes. That never happened. Never. Of course, if you live in Canada, I spoke in Canada, cigarettes are $60 a carton. I said, how does anybody smoke around here? But if you ever get a chance, go to Canada. God, they just treat you like visiting royalty. They were so nice to me. The second thing she taught me was honesty means that I must be honest with me. It has nothing to do about your old man or your money. It has to do that I can do anything I want in recovery as long as I'm honest with me and I'm willing to take the responsibility for my own behavior. And the most important thing that this giant of a woman taught me was the definition of love. She told me love is something given freely, expecting nothing in return. That the gift is in the loving, not if you love me back. You know, when I got here, if I said, I love you, I had an agenda. And if you said you loved me, I went all about proving you to be a liar. Say, I love you, darling. I'll never look at another woman as long as I live. And when I finally ran you off, I'd say, see, you motherfucker, you lied. But that's not today. I can come into any room of Narcotics Anonymous and say truly from my heart, I love you all. There's a bunch of you I don't like. But my program doesn't tell me I have to like you. My program just tells me I have to love you. This lady told me the next thing that comes out of most sponsors' mouth, we would strongly suggest that you do not get in a relationship for the first year. And I looked at this broad, she's about my age now. I said, what does she know? She's old. So I found him. And he was wonderful. He had 8 years and I had 3 heartbeats, so I must be doing it right. He had one little flaw. He was married to somebody else. That was all right. I wasn't married. I wasn't doing nothing wrong. And I made the mistake of saying, God has not made the piece of ass I'm going to use over. And I was sorely tested. Because we had this wonderful relationship. We talked on the 3rd month of every year. We fucked a lot. We talked occasionally. And out of that relationship, a child was born. And the day I went into labor, he decided it was time to go home to his wife. And that child was born dead. And I went to the hospital alone. And one more time, I knew that God had forsaken me. And one more time, I had to surrender that child was God's and it wasn't mine and it wasn't meant to be. And I was brave. And I went to meetings and I just hoped somebody'd ask me what step I was working so I could tear their head off. You know, I kind of miss the old days. I haven't been to a meeting in a long time where there are guns on the table. I haven't been to a service meeting where somebody jumps over the table and puts a gun to somebody's head and says, if you don't agree with me, I'm going to blow your head off. It's kind of boring. I mean, I'm sure you're more organized here than we are in California. But, well, we lived a long time with the fallacy that we are the home of Narcotics Anonymous. So We're different and we're unique. Just sick pups. We argue about the same shit in San Diego that you argue about here. And if you have the misfortune of chairing anything, know that you were open to gunfire. And if anything goes wrong, it's never a committee member, it's the chair. And 10% of us do it, and 90% bitch about the way we do it. And if you are not involved in service, you're missing the icing on the cake. Now, they did something when I was in Canada that I've never seen before, and I've been to a lot of conventions. They had a service countdown for how many people, how long had been involved in service. And there were only like 500 people at this convention. And I will tell you that at least 7/8 of them stood up for the service countdown. We could learn something from them in California. You know, I don't know about here, but in California we have a lot of trouble with rotation. You know, they get into a position and then we'll go to hell if we don't leave them there, you know. And they beat on the table. I know you don't do that here. But if you stay long enough, then you got to get up in front of everybody and say, I was a fool, and I'm sorry. I love when you have 2 or 3 years and you're so adamant. You know what's wrong with it. There ain't nothing wrong with it except you. We do well. It is God-inspired. How can it go wrong? You know, but I love going to service meetings, especially convention committee meetings. We got an asshole in California that's been in for since Jesus was a boy. And I avoid that committee like the plague. But I guess he means well. It's a child of God like me. I just don't know how God got him. My sponsor told me that I would go to the same club every day. And I would be there a half hour early, and I would set up. And I would make coffee. Now, I don't even drink coffee. She told me, my first job was cleaning ashtrays. I said, but you understand, I got a maid at home. Couldn't I bring her down here, let her clean the ashtrays? She said, no, darling, you'll clean the ashtrays. I said, oh, fuck, I'll clean the ashtrays. Then I got to wash cups. In those days, we had real cups. Today, you can't have real cups because the meeting would only have them one night. Then they'd just mysteriously walk away. We had cups. And I said, but I don't do dishes. She says, here you do. Oh, I don't do dishes. I don't know why I listened to this bitch. I hated her. Ooh, nasty woman. She told me I'd make coffee. And she drugged me to all these meetings. I said, oh, I have a wonderful diet. She'd say, sit down and shut up. You ain't got nothing to say. When you have 2 years, we'll ask your opinion. I said, but I could run it so much better. I said, we don't care. We're doing just fine, muddling through with our own little knowledge of recovery. And when I finally got to do something in service, and this is only my opinion, I was fortunate enough to work in what I believe is the finest committee in Narcotics Anonymous, and that's H&I. And they don't want what we got, but we hook them. She would tell me I would go to this same club for 5 years, and I would not go anywhere else unless I went with her. She made me volunteer at the county hospital in L.A., and for 3 years on Saturday night, that's what I did. She said, I want you to see the havoc that you and people like you bring about in the lives of helpless men, women, and children. She made me talk. Every time there was a speaker, I had to go tell him I liked him. I hated him. She said, you go tell him thank you. I said, for what? She said, for taking time out to talk to you because you're sick. So I shook a lot of hands. So don't come tell me you liked me if you didn't. I don't care if you like me. I like me. When I had 5.5 years, I decided I was going to go to Alaska. Because when I flipped that coin and ended up in Hawaii, one side of the coin was Hawaii and the other side was Alaska. And my sponsor said, well, that's fine. This is the first day of October. I put my house on the market, and she says, well, by the time you sell your house and you get all this done, you get to Alaska during breakup, which is springtime. And it'll be fine. And I put my house on the market the 2nd day of October, and the 13th day of October, I was in Fairbanks, Alaska. And the last words out of this wonderful lady's mouth is, Mona, you know how you are with marriage. Try not to do that. I said, I will never get married again. I went to Fairbanks, Alaska, and there were 7 people in the meeting. And I said, what is this? You don't know how to do it right. And I tried to tell them how we did it in California. I did not endear myself to these people. And when I left Alaska and I came back to California, I said, you don't do it the way we do it in Alaska. And they said, we don't care how you do it in Alaska. But I walked into this meeting and I met him. And he was all the things that I had ever dreamed of in a man. He was tall, he was full-blooded Indian. He had 5 years and had one little minor flaw. Nope, wasn't married. Had money in the bank. He couldn't stay clean. The day after we were married, he told me he had been loaded the night before. I said, well, I'm the executive director of this treatment facility. I will save him. And you know, I had made a vow that if I ever married again, I would do anything within my power to make it work. And for 6 years, I did. If he wanted to read the paper, we read the paper. If he wanted to go to a meeting, we went to a meeting. I stayed home and cleaned house. Now, I would rather be beat with a fucking stick than clean house. And I cooked. I mean, and you can only clean the house so much. There's 2 people living in it, you know. So what do you do after 10 a.m.? You sit around and you wait for him to come home. And I loved him unashamedly. He's the only man in my life that I've ever allowed to call me by a pet name. And he thought I was helpless. And I'm about as helpless as a cobra. And I bargained with God, and I begged God. And he was a periodic, and I had no understanding of a periodic. I mean, if I only shot dope 1 week in a year, I'd still be doing it. But I saw the havoc that he could wreak in that 1 week. This man could pass paper better than God. In 1 weekend, he passed $60,000 worth of bad paper on checks that had no name on them. Now, when I go to the store and I want to cash a check for $10 over the amount, they want 15 pieces of ID and my firstborn. But this man, he could do it. I mean, he was something else. He was 6'4" and he weighed 300 pounds and he wore a 19.5 38 shirt. And he just was everything. Everything. You know, and I don't know if you only have one love in your life. I would hate to think so. But this man was what I wanted, and the last time he was gone, I knew that one of 2 things would happen. I either had to cut him loose or I had to join him, because I could no longer watch something I loved die inch at a time. And I told him that he had the right to die, but I had the right not to watch. And I took him to the plane, and I prayed the whole way there that he didn't have second thoughts. And then I cried, which seemed like forever. And when I got the call, because he said, I'm going to Hawaii to die. And when I got the call, we were very close fellowship. And the woman who gave me the call was an ex-baby of mine. And she was afraid to call me and tell me that she had been with my husband when he died. And I said, I'm real glad he didn't have to die alone. And I, one more time, was back at where I was at 9 years old when I picked up the first time. And I went outside, and it was 65 degrees below zero, and I cursed God. And I said, what is wrong with me that I cannot have a husband and a home life? And within 2 weeks of his death, I lost everything that I valued that made me who I was. I lost the best legitimate job I will ever have. The highest paying job, amount of money that I will ever make legally. And I lost my health. And one more time I was at that place. And I called all the women I sponsored and I said, get a new sponsor. And at that time I had a regional position and I had to go read a report. And I thought, well, I'll go there and then I'll kill myself. And I cleaned my house so my mother couldn't come say, see, she's still a pig. And I wrote my kids letters. And I went in the business meeting and they said, everybody read Mona's report? They said, yeah. They said, fine, Mona, you don't have to read your report. And I thought, well, fuck, I could have killed myself. But I thought that since I'd traveled 450 miles to get to this sumbitch, I'd stay, and I heard the speaker. And he was my Eskimo. He told me, if you're full of anger and resentment, and you're mad at God, and you hate recovery, you're suffering from untreated addiction. And this is what you do. You work 4 through 9 until the pain goes away. And I would like to tell you that went away just as soon as I heard it. But I had to have surgery because I had cancer in my spine. No, I didn't have it then. I just had to have surgery. I lied. And I was in this fucking cast. And California was not where I'd planned on spending my senior years. I loved Alaska. It's God's country. If you've never seen it, do yourself a favor and go. You can walk in Alaska and put your feet on a piece of ground and know that no human before you has ever touched that piece of ground. And it is without doubt the most astounding place that I've ever seen in my life. And the people are unbelievable. So I had to return to California. And I knew my mother was going to be waiting at the plane. And say something like, hello, glad to see you. Nice to have you home. You see, my mother was the one person my whole life that I had blamed for what was wrong with me. And my mother was the one time I tried in my early recovery in that first 30 days to make amends to my mother, and she was busy. And then down the road a little later, I tried to make amends to my mother, and she'd said, pardon me, could we do this tomorrow? I got to play bridge. And I didn't speak to my mother for 8 years. Because I hated her, and I had to have something to hate, because if I didn't hate her, guess who I had left to look at? Me. So I wrote my mother a letter when I was in Alaska, because I had this terrible feeling that my mother would die, and I would never get a chance to tell her how very sorry I was for the pain I had caused her. And I wrote her a 48-page letter, and my mother has never acknowledged that letter from that day to this day. But I am a strong believer in I make amends because I owe them, not because somebody's going to tell me I'm a wonderful human being. You know, you'll make amends, and some people will say, oh, it's all right, honey, you weren't so bad. And then you'll make amends to people, and they'll say, you know what, you were an asshole then, and you're an asshole now, and get out of my office. And I always say, well, thank you for sharing. But what that did for me was it freed me. And I no longer had to clutter my life up with hatred for a woman who had moved heaven and hell to help me. I was in 27 treatment facilities before I got clean. My mother spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on trying to fix me because she thought it was you. And if she just bought me a new house, a new car, got me a new old man and new clothes, I'd be fine. And I counted on that. I used to call my mother and say, send me fucking money. And we had a game we played. She said no, I begged. I called back, and then I'd grovel. She'd say maybe. And I'd say, fuck you, and a check would be in the mail. My mother now tries to play that game with me, and if I ask her for something, she says no. I say, well, thank you. And she runs it by me like maybe I've forgotten the game. But what it allowed me was to love my mother. And that is my only job. I don't have to like her. I don't have to approve of her. And she does not have to understand my disease. It is mine, not hers. So it gave me freedom, which is promised me in the basic text. I can now call my mother. She says the same thing to me on a daily basis. She's been saying to me for 50 years. If I call my mother and say, Ma, they cut off my feet, she said, isn't that funny? Last week they cut off 2 of mine. If I say, Ma, the ceiling fell in, she said, my house fell down. And I just call her, and she does not allow me to make amends to her because she said, you're my daughter and you wouldn't have done those things to me. But I make my amends. I call her on a daily basis, and I tell her I love her, and I mean it. I don't like her any better than I ever did. But I love her, and it's opened the lines to us. I was 22 years clean before my mother ever told me she was proud of me. And you know what? That's okay, because I was proud of me. You know, she told everybody else in the world all this wonderful stuff she thinks I do. And she'd say, Mona, I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars sending you to the finest schools in the world, and you work with dope fiends and raise pigs. I don't understand it. And I say, but Ma, I love it. She said, but you work too hard. She came to my, 16, 17, 18th birthday. She came to my first birthday, said, Mona, I really don't understand this program. How can you say God and fuck in the same breath? Then she came to my 17th or 18th and brought 4 cases of champagne, was highly indignant that we weren't going to drink it to celebrate. My birthday's in August, and I said, Ma, I got somewhere to be for Christmas. I can't drink any, thank you. She said, but you've been so long. Just a little? I said, I don't know nothing about a little. You know, if you want to bring it in a 5,000-gallon drum, maybe. And she doesn't have to understand. See, I wanted her to take her part. I wanted her to tell me she was sorry for whatever the hell I thought she needed to be sorry for. And one more time I was pointing the finger at somebody else to take the fault that was all mine. She had done everything she could, and God knows she... My mother's the kind of drinker that gets a drink and lets the ice melt in it. I mean, what is this? Either drink it or throw it away. Or she'll have 3 sips and say, oh, I think I've had too much. I don't know about too much today. My favorite story about too much is when I was in Alaska, I discovered coconut jelly beans. So I went into this little tiny store on the island of Kodiak, and I said, I want 50 pounds of those. And the lady said, 50 pounds? I was in Alaska 10 years, and I carried those son of bitches home to L.A. with me. But if I like it, I want a lot. If it's pain, I want a lot. If it's money, I want a lot. If it's anger, I want a lot. I love people say, I'm a little unhappy today. I don't know about a little anger. I know about suicide and homicide. Those are the only things I know about. Now, I'm a hope to die. Don't tell me, are you a little unhappy? Either I want to kill you or I want to kill myself. Suicide was the last thing I gave up in this program. I finally, fog lifted enough. I figured out suicide was killing the wrong person. All my life, I wanted to have my own treatment facility. And I had prayed, and I had begged, and I had bargained, and I had cajoled, and I'd done everything I could to get my own treatment facility. It just didn't come to pass. So one night I hit my knees and I said, all right, God, I'll do anything you want me to do. I just need a job, because I went back to San Diego, and I had 78 refusals to get a job. And I've been in the field of addiction for 26 years now, longer than I've been clean. And that was, my my natal birthday is the 26th of January, and it was the day after my birthday. And I said, all right, I'll do whatever the hell you want me to do. And on the first day of February, I was in my own treatment facility. And I went in and I saw this house, and this guy says, well, I want 80 grand for you to come in. I said, I got 1,200. He says, all right, I'll take it. And I got to know him real well, and I said, why did you take my 1,200 when you wanted 80,000? He said, because I knew you guys were about God's business, and I didn't need the money. Now, I don't know how it is in Ohio, but not many people in California say, I don't need your money. My oldest son had gone into treatment in December before I opened the facility in February. And this was a son that I'd had a fleeting something with his father. And I had given this child to his father and his father's wife to raise. And when it came time to do the intervention, they called me. I don't know why, but they did, and I went, and he went into treatment. The first 3 days he slept on top of the bed because he knew it was a mistake. And he came out of treatment, and I had asked someone else to be my partner in this venture, and it had fallen through, and my oldest son became my partner. And everybody said, you work for your mother, you'll be shooting dope in a day. And I've had 4 children. And those of you who are fortunate enough or unfortunate enough, whatever age your children happen to be, you know, if they're 11 to 30, you probably think it's a misfortune. But you have a child of your body, and if you're very, very fortunate, you have a child of your heart. And my oldest son was that to me. He was all things bright and beautiful. He was blonde and green-eyed and never had a bad thing to say about anybody, and his father and his wife did a hell of a job of raising this young man. 2 years ago, on the 25th of June, my oldest son died of AIDS cleaning this program. And I learned about courage from him. And I beg you, if you are in this room tonight and you have not been tested, you are a fool, an arrogant, unthinking, unspeaking. Worse than anything I could call you is a using addict if you think you don't deserve to be tested. My son tested negative in April, and on August the 4th he tested positive for full-blown AIDS. And they told me he would have 3 months, and we bought him 4 years. We bought him 4 years, and he was a giant. He never once said it was a curse from God. He said, it is a gift from a loving God, and though I do not understand it, I will not grovel in the time I have left. A coward dies many times, a brave man only once. And this 31-year-old boy who had the whole world to look forward to died like a giant. He never stopped going to meetings. He never stopped saying, I am grateful to be here, and I know I am a child of God, and He loves me. And he went to other people that suffered, and he talked to them. And he taught me about bravery. And I had promised him when he was diagnosed that I would never lie to him. And I lied to him every day. Because if you live with someone who's terminally ill, you become a true schizophrenic. Because you tell them what they need to hear, and inside your head screams, why? And there is no answer. And the last day of his life, He weighed less than 100 pounds. And I walked in the room and the doctor had told me he will not live the day out. And I was going to go to a meeting, and I said, no, I'll go to the hospital first and see him. And I saw him afraid for the first time. And he was hyperventilating, and they'd given him Demerol, which makes you hyperventilate. And I said, take that fucking shit away. They said, we're in charge. I said, fuck you. I'm in charge, and take it away. And I did the thing that I never thought I would be able to do. And I knew why at that time, that I was almost 22 years clean, and I had done every heartbeat of the preceding 22 years, because for the first and only time in my life, and I'm 56, almost 57 years old, I performed one unselfish act. And I went in and I took him, and he was just so frail. And I took him in my arms and I told him the fight was over. And that I was proud of him, and that I would be fine, and that he could go to be with God. And everything in me screamed, I would have given up my other children, I would have given up my grandchildren, I'd given up every one of you motherfuckers to save him, because he was my heart, and he thought I was special. He thought I was perfect. He thought I was unselfish. And he looked at me, and all of a sudden he stopped being afraid. And he told me that he wasn't cold anymore, and that the room was full of a bright light. And he said to me, well, I get to see Louis when I go to heaven. And Louis was a friend of ours who was the first dwarf to die of AIDS, and I had sat with him. Funny how God works. I had sat with him, and I came home and my son was diagnosed, and I had sat with Louis when he died. And I said, yes, you will. And he said, well, I see the boo dog. We'd had an old dog that was 19 years old that I'd gotten when I first got clean, and we'd had to put him to sleep. And I said, yes, you will. And he got the color back in his face, and he looked at me, and he said, if it is the end, there is no one I would rather have with me than you. It's a long ways from selling your bag, selling your ass for a bag. You think life's unfair? You think you don't got what you deserve? You got it all. And it's only a heartbeat away from going. And he smiled, and he died. And the people that were with me were not my family. They were people in Narcotics Anonymous. And I went to 3 meetings that day, and nobody asked me what step I was working. They just told me they loved me, and it was all right. And we had a funeral for my son. We had like 300 people there, and the people that talked, a lot of them had been through treatment with us. And they talked about the gift that he had given them. We didn't have some minister that didn't know him from Adam talking about he's going to be with God. We already knew he was with God. You know, when I prayed for God to let him go, I knew that he was now whole, and he was happy, and he was complete. And my anger was my selfishness, because I wanted him with me at any cost. And I will tell you how much my God loved me. My youngest son probably took after his father. I mean, I knew I would get the call about my youngest son, and I knew he would be dead, and I know somebody would have shot him, because he was as arrogant and as loud-mouthed and as out of line as I was. He was an accident waiting to happen, and the death of his brother brought him into recovery. Last year on the 13th May, my youngest son asked me to give him a cake in Narcotics Anonymous. And this was a child that told me my whole life and his that he hated me and he didn't need me. And he stood up in front of those people, and he wasn't Mona's kid. He was Craig, and he was clean, and he was in an A. And he said, the death of my brother brought me to my knees. And I understood why God had taken Don. God does not close a door that he doesn't open a window. Now, I have 2 grandbabies, and I don't know about yours, but mine are perfect. They've never seen me loaded, and they think Grandma is just it. My daughter used to bring my grandson, and she'd give me this list about what I could do and what I couldn't do, and she'd give me these books that I was supposed to read him, and he and I'd read the National Enquirer. And he'd go home and tell his ma, and my daughter keeps him immaculate, so when he comes to my house, he plays with the pigs, and he gets in with the horses, and he gets filthy, and then we'll say, oh, Ma's going to be here, and he runs and takes a bath. And he's all perfect when she gets in. Say, what'd you do? Oh, we just hung out, Ma. And my granddaughter just runs to me before she would run to anyone. And I heard Carmelita say it today, I was not a very good mother, but I am a dynamite grandmother. I spoil them, I indulge them, and I don't care if they're going to college. And I don't care if their teeth rot. I give them candy. And they get more than any 10 children should get. But I'll tell you the beauty of this program. My 6-year-old grandson saw a thing on TV about children who had no toys. And without anybody saying anything to him, he went in his bedroom and got all of his old things. And he said, Grandma, we need to give these to these people. And I said, why? He said, because they don't have God in their life to bring them toys. And my daughter is in recovery. Well, iffy. She thinks she's in recovery. But my son goes to meetings with me, and he spends time. He borrows money from me and gives it back. Something I never learned. And my life is full. And I am living the dream that I had as a very small girl on that ranch in El Centro, California. And that dream was, someday I will make a difference. I will not change the way the earth revolves, but when I die, they will not say she just took up space. And that is the gift of this program. The tears, the screaming. I never had a wonderful day and said, God damn, the birds are singing, the sun is shining. I think I'll work on my character defects today. I have not had that day yet. Maybe someday. I've gone kicking and screaming every time, and when I am willing to surrender, it all falls into place. My God has 3 answers to every prayer. Yes, no, and if you insist. And I've had those if you insist in recovery, and then I get down on my knees and I say, God, I lied. Please take this away. I want to thank you for asking me. I want to thank you for your indulgence. And I will close. I guess those of us who get long time, I always close the same way. And I had a little kid come up to me, well, young to me, he was about 18. And he said, can't you do something different? I've heard you 3 times and I'm tired of it. And I said, no, I don't plan on going back. This is as good as it gets, darling. I'm asked what recovery means to me. And I believe Martin Luther King said it best in Washington, D.C. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last.